Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our Focus Fridays, all writing related. Today, we're talking all about creating student buy-in. So, the three areas that we will focus in on today are purpose, examples, and proof. The purpose of hooking students, some examples on how to hook students, and why. What is the proof that we should be hooking our students in every lesson that we present? So let's start with the purpose. So what is the purpose of lessons? So they frame the students' thinking. It sets them up for the lessons. It makes them focus on the concept that is going to be presented. For some students like to know exactly what's coming to them. Some of them are very routine oriented. Some of them do not function well without the, it laid out before them. They like a preview, if you will. They don't like the unknown. And so it allows for students to be aware of what's going to be taught to them, which goes along with the learning objective. And then it allows them to make connections between what they already know and what they're about to learn. So it gets students excited, it gets them motivated, it gets them engaged, as long as we're using a hook that speaks to the students. So you want to also be aware, before I continue on here, we want to be aware of the triggers for our students as well. We don't want to put something up in the screen or present something that hooks our students that might be a trigger for them, if you are aware of those things. And so backing up a bit, last week we talked about how to get this information, how to gather it all so that we know what our students are interested in. So we talked about student interest surveys and different types of surveys last week. You can check that video out. But today we're going to focus all about hooking the students. So we know what they are interested in. Now we are ready for the presentation or the lessons. And now we need to hook them so that we engage them and have their attention so that we can move forward and obviously keep the engagement throughout the lesson. So let's first focus on the types of hooks. Okay, the types of hooks. So here's a list. This is not the end all be all. There's definitely more. I have a couple of slides to talk about here, but we can start off our lessons, and they don't have to be PowerPoint presentations or keynotes or Google Slides. They can be however it works for you and your students and the makeup of your classroom. But you can ask a question, just starting it off with a question. Most students want to talk, they want to share. So if you can ask a question, and not an academic question per se, but maybe an opinionated question, maybe something that's subjective, so that you get both sides responses, engages a little bit more. You always want to think about that as you're delivering engagement and engaging type of activities, and you're trying to hook your students. You want to think about both sides. So if you ask a question, you want to make sure that it's a question that pretty much all of them can answer, because if you don't, then we're singling out those that may not know that academic answer. Or maybe it's a review question and it's simple enough that all of them would know. But if you ask them a question that's more of an opinion type, then we all have an opinion on literally everything, right? So it could go one way or the other. It could be for it, whatever the question is, or it could be opposed to it. All right, so you can start a lesson with questions. Again, that could be via presentations. I personally love that visual of a presentation so people can see it. Again, you want to keep in mind all the modalities in your classroom. And I know that seems like a long stretch. You can't meet the needs of everybody, but overall, if you create a template, especially as you get going, you can keep duplicating those topics or those templates. So if you make a presentation, it could have sound for the auditory learners. It could have moving parts, right? For those, it's attention grabbing. You can have the visual, right? And maybe there's a assignment or an activity type thing on the board that gets your kinesthetic learners up. So, however you present the question, that is a type of hook. I mentioned sound effects. Again, this doesn't have to be on a PowerPoint presentation. It could be a megaphone. It can be a portable doorbell. It can be any type of sound signal. Maybe it's random. You do it right before the lesson. That will clearly get your kids' attention. Now, if it's something that's novel, they've never heard it before, that'll definitely get their attention. Maybe you have sound signals in your classroom. I had a lot of those, not an overabundance, but enough that they meant certain things. So when I rang them, students knew exactly what to do. So some sort of sound effect, but you want to obviously relate it to your lesson. Okay. GIFs, those are popular. They might be in and out of ads, but GIFs, especially if they're funny, they're silly, they're attention, they're moving, right? They're engaging. Riddles. Again, this is one of those, kind of going back to the question, do a riddle that is obtainable for your students. But it doesn't have to necessarily be the actual riddle. It could be more of a mystery picture, or those pictures that you look at that, what do you see? You might see a duck. I might see something else, right? That can be under that umbrella of riddles, because everyone wants to have a say and everyone wants to voice their opinion and their thoughts. And by doing all of these things, we're engaging our students, but we're also creating the safe space for them to share what they're thinking. Relatable topics, of course, relatable characters, popular characters. Again, everyone has an opinion on all these different things. Some kids might like the character you put on, some kids may not. Maybe it's not a character. Maybe it's what's popular. Those puppets, those were really popular. I know a lot of people are using them now. Matter of fact, I saw at Target yesterday, they had the rulers in the school supply section that had the puppets, which I thought were really awesome, actually. What a great way to utilize that for those students that need that tactile modality, stimulation. So, popular items, toys, characters. Maybe it's a quote. Maybe it's a funny quote. Maybe it's a popular quote. Maybe it's one that just is kind of like jaw dropping, like, oh my gosh, that's really cool. In kid terms, of course. Maybe it's a character that quoted something. And then, of course, figurative language, those loud sounds. Maybe it's a picture of a boom. Maybe it's a sound that says boom. So, what are those ways to just quickly capture someone's attention? If you or I were in our space where we are, and all of a sudden we hear this loud kaboom, right? It kind of stops us in our tracks. So, more or less, it's the same idea when we are creating lessons. So, here's some more ideas. And these are much more broad. Again, make it personal, make it relatable. Not so personal, obviously. Again, you don't want to cross those boundaries, but make it personal in that their interest. Again, last week we talked about the interest survey, things like that. You can start with an image, a video, as I mentioned, a GIF, an actual video. Maybe it's a clip from, a popular movie that's obviously appropriate for their grade level. As the kids get older, maybe a graph or a map, or maybe it just depends on the graph or map. Maybe it's a graph of a survey that you took that compiled all of their responses. That's engaging. They want to know what, as long as they have something to do with it. A drawing, maybe it's a student's drawing. You could have, but again, all of these things, they want to relate to your lesson, of course. These are just examples. Okay, ask for a prediction, maybe more of the persuasive or the opinion route. you can start off the lesson by just creating something. So there's a lot of things you can see here on the screen that are different ways to engage. Now there's a part that says take a quiz. You know, Kahoots is really popular. You put that up on your screen, and it depends if they have access, obviously, to technology to input their answers, but those type of things are engaging. So those are some example types. As we move into proof, why do we need to hook our students? So let's look at some statistics here. This is middle school, but this can probably easily relate to elementary. Overall idea. So it says that overall, 72% of students felt like they were being bored in class at least some of the time, 72% of students. Why? Why are they? And again, this is middle school, but this can relate to elementary, can relate to homeschool, right? Any age, really. This can relate to ourselves. So why were they 72% bored all the time? Of that 72%? Well, material wasn't interesting. The teaching methods were not interesting. If we teach the same every time, we don't change it up, you and I would be bored as well. And we're bored teaching it. Who are we kidding, right? We're bored teaching it. So some of the most engaging classroom activities in this study, 85% were group projects. They're working together, they're able to talk, they're able to move, they're able to touch, they're able to create. Okay, 84 is discussion and debate. Again, they're talking. Guys, we are relational, right? We are relational. We like to be able to get our thoughts out, ask questions, but maybe more in a safe space with a smaller group. 84% projects, lessons involving technology, which that can be a blessing and a curse, right? As long as we're using technology appropriately and in moderation, I think it's great, my opinion. The least engaging classroom activities, teaching lectures, writing prompts, giving presentations and speeches. Because it's kind of like, you can't see me now, but it's like, get your hand out and like, wah, 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 you know, the talking hand. Mouth is moving, but they're not listening. And so when we do that, even in the elementary classroom, even in the elementary setting at home, same thing goes, right? And so we have to hook our students in such a way that we can alleviate this. We don't want to just do, there's paper, pencil, obvious, appropriate times for that 100%. But if it's the same all the time and you're just not using engaging activities and sounds and movements and whatever it is, we're going to lose our students. All right. And that was writing projects, not writing prompts. Excuse me. I'm thinking writing prompts, though, the same thing. If you give students writing prompts that they cannot relate to, talked about this in other videos, that's not going to be engaging. They can't relate. So allowing them maybe a sentence starter, but allowing them to choose their topic that they are interested in or they have had experience with, that then is going to get them engaged. So what motivates students? Okay. Succeeding in the world outside of school, some say, getting good grades, learning. Overall, the highest percentage there is a success. They want to know that they can be successful. They want to know that they can feel heard, that their opinions and their thoughts matter. They don't have to keep them inside. They're worthy enough to share. Okay. And then what motivates them to go to school? Well, 84% say friends, 80% say parents, guardians, right? And then others, 55% in this particular study says teachers. Well, but we can change that, right? If we change that, the trajectory of those future statistics will increase if we are thinking about that engagement. So all that said, really, really important that we hook and engage our students, not only hooking them in the beginning, but keeping them hooked throughout the lesson. So if you have not grabbed the summer check prep list, I have quite a few things in there filled with content that allow you some ideas on how to hook your students. One that I've used in my classroom for years, and I have a blast with it. The students have a blast with it, but it's a win-win. They're engaged, they're hooked, but it is helpful and useful for future, and I'm speaking to writing, but you can do it with any subject. But the activities I share in here are applicable to future assignments. So it's not just a hook activity just for the time being. It will be beneficial moving forward. So if you haven't grabbed this yet, you can go to www.createdtoteach.com/summer. Summer, SUMMER. You can grab that there. And today is actually the last day for our Crack the Writing Code course. It's the last day. I think we have, I don't know, 5-ish more hours to grab that. This is the course that is going to be what you need for your new school year. It is going to equip you and your students for the necessary tools you need. No fluff, actionable steps, digestible information, everything you need, not more, not less, for your teaching instruction as you move forward into the new school year. So if you're interested in that, you can go to www.createdtoteach.com/writing course. So a few more hours for that, and that will close up. And finally, our overall goal every time that we're together is we want to make sure that both you and your students feel equipped, empowered, and elevated. And that is our goal. If you guys have any questions ever about any of the lesson trainings or have any suggestion for future Writing Focus Fridays, feel free to let me know in the comments. And I can't wait to see you guys next week. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.